and remember that she was compassionate and kind. And there's not enough of that in this world.
The world has always been captivated by the bond between Elton John and Princess Diana, a friendship built on mutual respect, love, and an unbreakable connection. But now, years after her tragic passing, Elton John has spoken out, revealing shocking truths about their relationship and the turmoil behind the scenes. What he said is unexpected, and it sheds a whole new light on the pressures Diana faced in her private life. This revelation isn't just heartbreaking, it's a wake-up call that challenges everything we thought we knew. Elton John and Diana's initial meeting didn't just happen. It was born under the glittering chandeliers of a royal celebration. Their first encounter was at Prince Andrew's 21st birthday party in 1981, a grand affair steeped in royal pomp. While the ballroom brimmed with formality, the energy was far from lively. Amidst the grandeur, a young Diana, fresh from her fairy tale engagement to Prince Charles, found herself longing for a moment of joy. Elton, already a global sensation, was soaking in the atmosphere, though his playful spirit craved something more spontaneous. Here's where the magic unfolded. As the band played a jaunty Charleston, Diana stepped onto the deserted dance floor and extended her hand to Elton. What happened next was pure serendipity. The two twirled, giggled, and shared a moment that felt like a scene from a movie. It wasn't just a dance, it was a spark, a connection. Diana, not yet the icon she would become, was simply a young woman escaping royal rigidity for a fleeting moment of fun. Elton, known for his vibrant personality, became the perfect partner in that moment. Who would have thought that a dance could ignite a friendship that would one day make headlines around the world? That dance became the foundation of something extraordinary. Both Diana and Elton were emotionally vulnerable in their own ways. Diana was stepping into a world of immense pressure, and Elton, despite his fame, carried the weight of his own personal struggles. This was no ordinary friendship, it was built on a shared understanding of life's highs and lows. As the years rolled on, Diana and Elton's bond deepened into a rare and heartfelt connection. This wasn't just a friendship of public smiles and mutual admiration, it was raw, real, and deeply personal. Diana found in Elton something she desperately needed, a confidant. Her life, so often depicted as a fairy tale, was anything but. Behind palace walls, her marriage to Prince Charles was unraveling. She struggled silently with bulimia, a reflection of the immense pressure she faced to embody perfection. She felt isolated, her voice stifled by royal expectations. When Diana needed to unburden herself, she turned to Elton. Late-night phone calls and candid conversations became their norm. Elton listened without judgment as Diana poured out her fears, frustrations, and insecurities. What would you say to someone who felt trapped in a golden cage? For Diana, Elton was the one person who truly understood. Elton, in turn, gave Diana something that was in short supply in her life: humor, compassion, and a sense of normalcy. Known for his wit and flamboyance, Elton often lightened Diana's mood with jokes and shared laughter. But he also provided her with a safe space where she could shed the princess persona and simply be herself. In Elton's company, Diana was free to express her true feelings without fear of judgment or repercussion. Their friendship was more than a mutual exchange of emotional support, it was a lifeline. Diana, often seen as the epitome of grace and poise, had an incredible sense of humor that matched Elton. Together, they found joy in life's absurdities, poking fun at the pressures of fame and the peculiarities of royal protocol. Can you imagine a princess and a pop star bonding over the ridiculousness of their larger-than-life roles? That's the magic Diana and Elton shared. What set their bond apart was its depth. Diana wasn't just another celebrity friend for Elton, she was a kindred spirit. They both understood the pain of living in the spotlight, the toll it took on their mental health, and the deep desire to be seen for who they truly were, not what the world wanted them to be. For Diana, Elton's friendship was a refuge. As her marriage crumbled and her mental health struggles became harder to bear, she found solace in someone who could make her laugh and listen with empathy. Elton, no stranger to his own battles with addiction and depression, resonated with Diana's struggles. He wasn't just a friend, he was an anchor. When the world saw a princess, Elton saw a human being in need of love and understanding. Their connection wasn't just private, it played out in the public eye too. Whether it was sharing a laugh at events or supporting each other's causes, their camaraderie was unmistakable. Yet, for all its brightness, their friendship wasn't immune to the pressures of their extraordinary lives. King Charles's role in the rift was crucial. Friendships in the spotlight of fame are rarely easy, but the friendship between Princess Diana and Elton John was as close as it was complicated. This bond, though cherished by both, hit a breaking point, and much of that heartbreak seems to lead back to one man, King Charles. What happens when the star becomes brighter than the sky it's in? That's what seemed to trouble King Charles as Diana's popularity began to soar. By the mid-1980s, Diana had become a global icon, admired for her humanitarian work and relatability. She wasn't just the Princess of Wales, she was the people's princess. This adoration made headlines everywhere and, as many insiders have suggested, became a point of contention for Charles. Charles, who had been raised to see the royal family as the pinnacle of tradition and dignity, reportedly found it hard to reconcile Diana's public warmth and openness with his own reserved demeanor. Was Diana too captivating for her own good, or was the royal machine unprepared for her magnetism? For Charles, this wasn't just about personality differences. Diana's fame often eclipsed his, even during events meant to highlight his contributions. Public adoration leaned heavily toward her, and the imbalance gnawed at the dynamics of their marriage and her friendships. One such friendship, with the bold and boundary-breaking Elton John, became a target of concern. Elton John, already a global superstar, was known for his flamboyant stage presence, sharp wit, and unwavering commitment to causes that pushed societal boundaries. One of these causes was the fight against AIDS, a subject still cloaked in stigma during the 1980s and 1990s. Elton didn't just lend his name to the cause, he poured his heart into it, often speaking out in ways that were as loud as his sequined outfits. For a monarchy built on discretion and tradition, Elton's larger-than-life personality posed a potential PR headache. Charles's reported concerns weren't just about Elton's boldness but also about how closely Diana was associating with him. Charles may have feared that this high-profile friendship and Elton's advocacy for AIDS awareness could complicate the royal family's carefully crafted image. Why would a friendship rooted in laughter and mutual respect spark so much tension? Diana, by nature, was fiercely loyal to those she loved, and her friendship with Elton was no different. They shared a unique connection, one that thrived on mutual vulnerability and humor. But as their bond deepened, pressures from Buckingham Palace reportedly mounted. Charles, who was already frustrated with Diana's rising star, began to express his unease over her public affiliations. One turning point came when Elton was working on a coffee table book to support his AIDS Foundation. This project, featuring portraits of celebrities and royalties, was deeply personal to him. Diana, known for her compassion, had initially agreed to write the book's introduction, a move that would bring tremendous attention to the cause. Elton was ecstatic. Her endorsement would lend legitimacy and compassion to a topic many still avoided. But then, out of nowhere, Diana pulled out. She withdrew her support without much explanation, leaving Elton stunned and hurt. It wasn't until later that the shadow of Charles's influence became apparent. He had reportedly voiced concerns over the potential backlash this project could generate for the royal family. This wasn't about Diana's passion or Elton's commitment, it was about control. The charity book episode was more than a professional setback for Elton, it was personal. Diana's sudden withdrawal wasn't just a disappointment, it felt like a betrayal for a man who had stood by her side through some of her darkest moments. This abrupt distance was a crushing blow. Elton later described the period after this event as the deep freeze in their friendship. The warmth and trust that once defined their bond were replaced with a chilling silence. Their once frequent phone calls dwindled to nothing. The space left by Diana's absence in his life was as glaring as the spotlight they both once shared. How does one heal when the wound isn't inflicted by the friend you love but by the circumstances around them? For Diana, the decision to step back from the book wasn't easy either. By this point in her life, the pressures of royal expectations were weighing heavily on her. Caught between her personal loyalty to Elton and her responsibilities as a member of the royal family, Diana was in an impossible position. Her withdrawal wasn't a reflection of her feelings for Elton but of the tightening grip the palace had on her every move. While Diana grappled with royal constraints, Elton was left with unanswered questions and a deep sense of loss. Their friendship, once a source of joy and solidarity, now felt like another casualty of the rigid royal system. When does loyalty to duty become betrayal to oneself? Elton, a man unafraid of speaking his mind, chose silence for years after their fallout. He didn't publicly blame Charles or the royal family at the time, though those close to him knew where the blame lay. Instead, he channeled his heartbreak into his music and activism, carrying on the work he and Diana had once dreamed of championing together. Despite their estrangement, Elton never stopped caring for Diana. Their bond may have been tested, but it was never truly broken. In 1997, just weeks before Diana's untimely death, fate brought them back together under tragic circumstances at the funeral of their mutual friend, Johnny Versace. Sitting side by side, they shared their grief, a brief rekindling of the warmth they'd once had. Sometimes life gives us a second chance only to take it away too soon. Diana's death left Elton reeling, but it also solidified his resolve to honor her legacy. His iconic performance of "Candle in the Wind" at her funeral became a global anthem of grief and remembrance, a moment that remains etched in history. Even as years passed and his relationship with the royal family grew more strained, Elton stayed loyal to Diana's memory. From supporting her sons to defending her values, he made sure the world never forgot the woman behind the crown. The rift between Diana and Elton wasn't just the result of personal misunderstandings, it was a consequence of the immense pressures placed on them by forces beyond their control. Charles's influence, whether intentional or circumstantial, played a significant role in the unraveling of their friendship. Yet, through the pain and distance, their connection endured in ways words couldn't fully capture. Elton's commitment to preserving Diana's legacy never wavered. Proves that even when friendships are tested, the love and respect at their core can remain unshaken. In a world of royal rules and public scrutiny, some bonds are simply unbreakable. Diana's death and its aftermath. On August 31, 1997, Diana tragically passed away in a car crash in Paris. The world was shocked. The loss of the people's princess was felt across the globe, a wave of mourning that spread like wildfire. Her sudden and unexpected death left millions of people grappling with a sense of collective grief, and for Elton John, it was a devastating blow. Elton and Diana's friendship, which had endured so many ups and downs over the years, came to an abrupt end with her death. Though they had become distant in the last months of her life, the pain Elton felt was overwhelming. He had just begun to reconcile with Diana, and now she was gone. His heartache was not just from the loss of a friend, but from the loss of someone who had been a constant presence in his life, a confidant, a fellow artist, and a woman whose warmth had once lightened his darkest days. The reality that he would never be able to speak to her again, never share another joke, or support each other through their respective struggles was almost too much to bear. A sudden, heartbreaking death that shattered Elton's world. How would he cope with the grief of losing Diana? In the midst of the worldwide mourning, Elton found himself tasked with honoring Diana in a way that felt deeply personal to him. He was asked to perform at her funeral, a responsibility he did not take lightly. In the face of such profound loss, Elton chose to perform "Candle in the Wind," a song he had originally written for Marilyn Monroe but now felt fitting as a tribute to Diana's life. The lyrics were reworked to reflect Diana's life, her legacy, and the sorrow of her untimely death. The song, already deeply emotional, became an even more powerful symbol of the grief that the world was feeling. Elton's performance at Diana's funeral was nothing short of emotional. As he sang "Goodbye England's Rose," the world watched and millions cried. It was a raw, powerful moment. Elton, grieving the loss of a friend, poured his heart into a song that captured the essence of Diana's spirit. For Elton, singing "Candle in the Wind" wasn't just about honoring Diana, it was about giving voice to the collective grief of a world that had lost someone so beloved. He understood the weight of the moment, the need for it to be perfect, and his performance became a catharsis, not just for him, but for millions of people who had loved Diana. However, Elton's performance didn't come without its controversies. Was Elton's emotional tribute a fitting tribute, or did it stir the pot in a family already divided? Despite the heartfelt nature of the performance, it wasn't easy for Elton. Behind the scenes, there were tensions surrounding his involvement in the funeral. Prince Charles, who was still reeling from the loss of his ex-wife, was reportedly concerned about the public nature of Elton's tribute. But Elton, with his deep understanding of Diana's life and legacy, knew that this was a moment that needed to be personal, heartfelt, and true to Diana's spirit. After some deliberation, the decision was made to allow Elton to perform. Though the tension between him and Charles was palpable, Elton's performance at Diana's funeral became one of the most memorable moments of the entire service. The world watched as he sang, and the emotion in his voice resonated with everyone who had ever admired Diana. Elton John's decision to speak out about his relationship with Princess Diana and the royal family was a moment that caught the public by surprise. For decades, Elton had kept quiet about the intricacies of his friendship with Diana, never revealing the true reasons behind their eventual estrangement. What was it that finally compelled him to break his silence? Why did he choose to open up after so many years? The answer, it seems, lies in his deep commitment to preserving Diana's memory and legacy. Diana was not just a princess to Elton, she was a close personal friend who stood by him through some of his darkest moments. Their bond wasn't simply based on shared fame or public appearances, it was rooted in mutual respect, shared struggles, and a true understanding of each other's pain. But what exactly was at the heart of this incredible friendship, and why did it eventually fall apart? Elton has often spoken about how Diana felt isolated within the walls of Buckingham Palace, trapped in a life where her emotional and mental health were often neglected. As a fellow public figure, Elton knew firsthand the pressures of living under constant scrutiny, but his struggles were often overshadowed by the royal family's more rigid expectations. Diana, trapped in an unhappy marriage and dealing with personal demons, found solace in Elton's genuine empathy, and in turn, Elton found in Diana a friend who saw him for who he truly was, rather than for his fame or eccentricity. However, the royal family's impact on Diana's life cannot be overstated. Elton has made it clear that much of the strain on their friendship came from the overwhelming pressures of royal life, pressures that Diana struggled with for years. Was it simply royal duty that caused Diana so much pain, or was there something deeper at play? Elton's view is that the royal family, particularly Prince Charles, was a significant factor in the emotional turmoil Diana faced. While many see Charles as a distant and emotionally aloof figure, Elton believes that his influence extended far beyond his marriage to Diana. Charles, concerned with preserving the monarchy's image, saw Diana's growing fame and independence as a threat. As Diana's popularity soared, especially for her charitable work, Charles grew increasingly anxious about how her personal life and friendships might reflect on the royal family. Elton's acknowledgement of this strain on Diana's life and their friendship sheds light on the emotional weight she carried. How could she maintain genuine relationships when everything she did was seen through the lens of royal expectations and public scrutiny? It's easy to forget, but Diana was a young woman when she entered the royal family. She was barely out of her teens when she married Charles, and much of her life was shaped by the rules and traditions of the monarchy. Elton recognizes that these external pressures placed an immense strain on Diana's ability to form and sustain meaningful connections. It wasn't just about the public eye, Diana's sense of self was often at war with the expectations placed on her. As Elton began to reflect on these pressures, it became clear to him that the public narrative surrounding Diana's life didn't capture the full truth. For years, the public was fed a story about the fairy tale wedding, the tumultuous marriage, and the tragic divorce. But what about the real Diana, the woman behind the headlines, the one who cried out for help, who felt trapped in a gilded cage? This is what Elton wanted to bring to light. He recognized that the media and the royal family had often cast Diana in a way that didn't do justice to who she really was or what she truly stood for. Diana wasn't just a pawn in a royal game, she was a woman who cared deeply about the world, a woman who wanted to make a difference. This was the Diana that Elton knew and loved, and this was the Diana he wanted the world to remember. And then there was the question of why he chose to speak out now, after all these years. It's not easy for someone like Elton, a man who has always guarded his privacy, to suddenly open up about such a deeply personal chapter of his life, but his decision to do so came from a place of deep respect for Diana and a desire to see her legacy live on. Why now? Why after so many years of silence? Perhaps it was because Elton knew that Diana's story, her struggles, and her triumphs, were at risk of being overshadowed by the ongoing drama within the royal family. Perhaps it was because after all this time he finally realized that the truth needed to be told, not just for Diana's sake but for the millions of people whose lives she touched. The media had often reduced Diana's story to sound bites and scandalous headlines, but in Elton's view, her legacy was far more complex, far more powerful than what the tabloids had portrayed. Would the world have understood Diana if they only saw the surface? Elton, being the compassionate person he is, believed that the public needed to see the full picture of Diana's life, including the struggles she faced in private. By speaking out, Elton hoped to ensure that Diana's influence would endure, not just as a royal figure, but as a symbol of empathy, compassion, and resilience. One of Elton's greatest motivations in speaking out was to honor Diana's story. He wanted to ensure that the real Diana, the woman who defied royal protocol to show kindness to the world, was not lost to history. Diana had always been a beacon of hope for those who felt overlooked or forgotten. Her work with charities, particularly in the fight against AIDS, changed the way the world viewed the disease. Elton, who had long been an advocate for AIDS awareness, knew how much of an impact Diana had made in normalizing the conversation around a disease that was once shrouded in shame. He wanted the world to remember Diana for these qualities, not just for the drama that surrounded her marriage or her tragic death. But how did Elton's decision to speak out affect his relationship with the royal family? It certainly didn't help mend fences with Prince Charles. In fact, his public statements only highlighted the ongoing tension between him and the monarchy. Elton's outspoken support for Harry and Meghan Markle, along with his criticism of the royal family's treatment of them, further solidified his rift with Charles. Was this a personal attack, or simply Elton's way of defending what he believes in? For Elton, it was clear he wasn't just standing up for Harry and Meghan, he was standing up for the values Diana held dear, the values of kindness, compassion, and authenticity. If the royal family couldn't see that, it was their loss. Ultimately, Elton's choice to speak out was more than just a chance to tell his side of the story. It was a chance to keep Diana's memory alive. What kind of impact would it have if Diana's legacy was forgotten? Elton knew that by speaking the truth, he could help ensure that Diana would always be remembered for the person she was, not the person the royal family or the media tried to shape her into. In doing so, Elton not only honored his friendship with Diana but also paid tribute to the countless lives she touched in her too short time on this earth. Do you think there's more to this story that we've yet to uncover? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if you found it insightful, subscribe for more stories that dive deep into the lives of icons, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.